Before any fan ever called Denny Hamlin a cheater, a legend already had. Mario Andretti looked at him and said 3 words, "There's that cheater." Nobody could have known how loud that word was about to get. Denny Hamlin is tied for 9th on the all-time Cup Series wins list. He just produced the most dominant 3-week stretch of his entire career. He won at Michigan by 11.11 seconds, the largest margin of victory on an oval in the next-gen era, then backed it up with a pole-to-win run at Pocono a week later. And instead of celebration, it lit a fire under every single critic he has. This is the full story of every fan, every rival, and every insider who has ever used the word cheater against Denny Hamlin. It's the story of how that word found him decades ago, how it followed him through disqualifications, lawsuits, and broken alliances, and exactly how he has answered every person who has ever said it to his face. If you are the kind of NASCAR fan who wants the receipts instead of the rage bait, hit subscribe right now, because by the end of this video, you are going to have a very specific question to answer in the comments. One involving real cars, real numbers, and 2 famous names who have been quietly pushing NASCAR to look closer at the 11 car. Stick around for that. Back in 2018, Denny Hamlin went an entire 36 race season without a single win. It was the only winless year of his career, and the reaction online was brutal. People said he was washed. People said Joe Gibbs Racing needed to fire him and move on. That same year, longtime crew chief Mike Wheeler parted ways with the team, and it looked for a moment like Hamlin's prime had already come and gone. That was 8 years ago. Since then, Hamlin has done the opposite of fade away. From 2019 through 2026, he has added 32 more wins, doubling the total he built in his first 13 seasons combined. But Hamlin is not just a driver anymore. He is also a co-owner of 23XI Racing, the team he built alongside Michael Jordan. And that ownership stake is exactly where this story gets complicated. For 14 months, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports waged an antitrust lawsuit against NASCAR itself, fighting over charters, revenue, and the structure of the sport. That case finally settled in December of 2025. A few months later, the 2026 season began, and Toyota became the dominant manufacturer almost immediately, picking up 13 wins in the first 16 Cup Series races. Joe Gibbs Racing, Hamlin's own team, accounted for several of those wins by itself. It is also worth saying plainly that Toyota has always drawn more scrutiny than Chevrolet or Ford, simply for being the only non-American manufacturer in the sport, long before any of this season's drama existed. Picture the optics. A driver who just spent over a year suing the sport for more power, watching his own manufacturer and his own team dominate the very next season. That is not a conspiracy, that is a timeline. But timelines are exactly the kind of thing people turn into conspiracies. But here is the thing most people still get wrong about this so-called cheating scandal. Almost none of the loudest voices throwing that word at Denny Hamlin are actual drivers who race against him every single Sunday. 2 former Cup Series champions have been the most vocal people inside the garage about this. Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski have both pushed publicly for NASCAR to expand its inspection process, specifically around the technical alliance between Joe Gibbs Racing and Hamlin's own team, 23XI Racing. Neither one has stood in front of a camera and used that word about him directly. What they have done is something more pointed. They have asked NASCAR to look closer at exactly how connected those 2 organizations really are, sharing equipment, sharing technical support, sharing success. When 2 former champions start asking questions like that out loud, the rest of the garage listens. That is what happens when respected voices pile on the same suspicion. It does more damage to a reputation than a single insult ever could. And NASCAR has in fact been looking closer at almost everyone, not just Hamlin. At Las Vegas back in March, 4 different car chiefs were ejected in the same weekend for inspection failures. After Pocono, 6 cars were sent back to the NASCAR Research and Development Center for further teardown. Kyle Larson, Daniel Suarez, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, John Hunter Nemechek, and points leader Tyler Reddick himself. Not one of them was Hamlin's 11 car. Larson's own team failed inspection twice in a single weekend earlier this season and had a car chief and an engineer ejected as a result. So the inspection net has been wide all year. It just has not caught the one car everyone is convinced is hiding something. Now here's the part of this story almost nobody is telling you correctly. After Denny Hamlin won the All-Star race at Dover and pocketed $1 million, An AI-generated post exploded across social media. It claimed his own teammate, Chase Briscoe, had gone to NASCAR officials with video evidence of a mysterious device hidden somewhere on the 11 car. It looked real, it spread fast, and it was completely fake. Hamlin saw it, and instead of getting defensive, he got funny. He posted online that he knew we would eventually get caught. He just never expected it to be a teammate who gave them away. That joke did more damage to the rumor than any official statement ever could have. The lie collapsed under its own weight within hours. Then came Michigan. On his own podcast, Hamlin addressed the chatter directly, telling listeners he loves it when people say his car is cheated up because it means they have no idea what they are actually watching. He joked that if his car really were as illegal as people think, winning would be embarrassingly easy. Let's make that concrete. 11 seconds. That is how far ahead of second place he finished at Michigan. Still the biggest oval track winning margin NASCAR has seen since the next-gen car arrived. 63 career wins now. That number sits him alongside the late Kyle Busch, 9th on NASCAR's all-time list. 3 wins in 3 consecutive weeks. 4 wins in his last 5 races. After Pocono, Hamlin himself admitted he was only seconds away from making it 5 wins in a row, if a rained-out finish at Charlotte had gone his way instead. Those are not the numbers of a driver getting lucky. Those are the numbers of a 45-year-old peaking while half the garage tries to figure out how. Go back to where this video started. Mario Andretti is not a hater. He is not a troll hiding behind a username. He is one of the greatest drivers in the history of motorsport, and Hamlin himself told the story on a podcast with Freddie Kraft and TJ Majors, describing how he ran into Andretti at dinner, and the legend looked at him and called him a cheater, years before any of this season's noise ever existed. This isn't some fresh grudge born out of jealousy over one good season. It's a label that has followed him, on and off, for the better part of 2 decades, recycled by a new audience every time he wins big. It is also worth noting that Hamlin has never been the type to sit quietly when he thinks someone else crossed a line. When Austin Dillon wrecked his way to a win at Richmond in 2024, Hamlin was one of the loudest voices in the garage, calling it a deliberate, planned move rather than hard racing. The same driver everyone now wants to label a cheater has spent his career being just as quick to point the finger at other people. That double standard runs in both directions, and it rarely gets mentioned in the same breath. A separate lawsuit has nothing to do with his driving at all, and everything to do with how Hamlin handles being accused. From 2019 through 2024, Chris Gabehart served as Hamlin's crew chief, and together they won 22 races in 6 seasons, tying the most productive driver-crew chief stretch of that entire era. Gabehart later moved into a competition director role at Joe Gibbs Racing, then left the team at the end of 2025 for a job at Spire Motorsports. Earlier this year, Joe Gibbs Racing sued him, claiming he stole tens of millions of dollars worth of confidential team data on his way out the door, including driver pay figures, sponsor revenue numbers, pit crew analytics, and tire data tied to race results. That is not a small leak. Spire Motorsports co-owner Jeff Dickerson pushed back hard, telling reporters it has been difficult sitting in court being called a liar and a thief and a cheater. Hamlin did not let that sit for even a day. He fired back on social media, listing out exactly what Gabehart is accused of taking and closing the post with a single blunt word, GTFO. Hamlin has also gone after insiders who doubted the lawsuit itself, not just the cheating chatter. When 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports first filed suit against NASCAR back in 2024, longtime crew chief turned broadcaster Larry McReynolds publicly criticized the move on SiriusXM, arguing an organization barely 4 years old had no business trying to change how NASCAR is run. Once the case settled in Hamlin's favor in December of 2025, Hamlin posted directly at McReynolds, asking whether he or anyone on his channel planned to apologize for what was said when the lawsuit was filed. McReynolds never responded. None of this means Hamlin has a clean record, and the story would be dishonest if it pretended otherwise. In 2022, NASCAR disqualified him from a Pocono win after officials found an illegal strip of tape hidden under the car's wrap, just 2 inches wide and 5.5 inches long. It was the first race winner disqualification in over 60 years. In 2024, a teardown of his winning engine at Bristol cost him 75 points, 10 playoff points, and his crew chief a $100,000 fine. Those penalties are real. Hamlin has never pretended otherwise. What he has done instead is use them as proof that when he actually breaks a rule, NASCAR catches it and punishes it in public, which is exactly why this season's string of clean inspections matters so much. So where does that leave the championship picture right now? After his win at Michigan, Hamlin trailed points leader Tyler Reddick by just 51 points, with 11 races left before the chase begins. That gap has been shrinking every week he wins, and it is shrinking at the exact moment Hamlin has started talking openly about walking away. He has hinted more than once that he does not plan to race past the 2027 season, telling reporters he does not think this pace is sustainable for the long haul and that the team better enjoy it while it lasts. He has also said, in his own words, that his ego will not let him stick around long enough to become mediocre. This is also not a clean, easy year off the track. Hamlin lost the 2025 title on a late caution and a controversial pit call, and not long after that, his terminally ill father passed away in a house fire. None of that excuses a single illegal part on a race car, but it does explain why a driver this far into his career, with this much already on his plate, has so little patience left for accusations he considers baseless. Compare all of it to Jimmie Johnson. Johnson retired in 2020 with 83 wins and 5 consecutive championships from 2006 to 2010, running what many consider the most dominant program in the sport's modern history. Nobody accused him of cheating his way through that stretch the way people are accusing Hamlin right now. Same sport, same level of dominance, a completely different reaction. That gap in how the two were treated is not about the cars, it is about who is doing the winning and how willing people are to believe it was earned. If Hamlin closes that 51-point gap and finally takes the title this year or next, the cheating conversation does not quietly disappear. It gets louder because nothing fuels a conspiracy theory faster than the thing it predicted never actually happening. And if he does not win it, the same critics will say the universe caught up with him eventually. Either way, the next few months are going to settle a 2-decade argument about who Denny Hamlin really is, one race at a time. This is not a driver hiding from the word cheater. This is not a driver who flinches when he hears it. This is a driver who turned an insult into a punchline on his own podcast and then went out and won by 11 seconds anyway. Mario Andretti said it years ago. The garage is still arguing about it today. Denny Hamlin just keeps driving. So here is the actual debate, not the fake one. Joey Logano and Brad Keselowski are on record wanting NASCAR to dig deeper into the technical alliance between the number 11 car and the number 45 car. Is that fair competitive pressure? Or is it sour grapes from drivers who are simply getting beaten? Drop your answer in the comments and tell us which race this season you would start the investigation from. If you are here for stories built on actual receipts instead of comment section outrage, you already know why this channel exists. Next week, we are breaking down exactly what happens to that 51-point gap if Tyler Reddick's engine troubles carry into the back half of the season.